Coming up next on Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, AMD's Bulldozer is here if you're a crazed supercomputer user. Battlefield 3, the minimum specs are legit. Flight Sim 10, it's all about the CPU. USB chargers suck. Temporary CPU upgrades suck worse. And gaming notebooks. What is the difference between a $600 Asus and a $3,000 Razer Blade? It's all coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 139, recorded September 29th, 2011. Battlefield 3 GPU recommendations.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit.
Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. I'm Patrick Norton, joined as always by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ryan Shrout. Are you home? Are you perchance using a GorillaPod to hold up a camera on a television?
I'm perhaps doing both of those very exact things. I'm at home in the office, not traveling for a little while. I'm not scheduled to be out of town until October 12th or something like that. I will be out your way again to do the GeForce LAN event in Alameda. So,
cool. That'll be exciting.
Then I will be traveling. For now, nice and cozy at home, doing a lot of Battlefield 3 testing / playing.
We should probably just probably start out with that, because I think it's by far the most exciting thing going on this week is Battlefield 3, which everybody's been eagerly anticipating. It's a video game for those of us who do not spend enough time gaming. And it is, I think it's looking pretty good. How's the hardware looking? Or how is its performance on hardware looking? / how much am I going to have to spend to be able to play it on my current system?
That is the question of the hour, right? I mean, seems like every week we've had emails about, hey, we want to upgrade for Battlefield 3. Here's my system. Do you think to play Battlefield 3? I've got $300. What do I spend to get the best Battlefield 3 experience? And we were always just kind of guessing at that point because I hadn't had any hands-on time. Yeah, I mean, hadn't had any hands-on time at the game. So the beta opened up this week. I believe it opened up on Tuesday if you'd pre-ordered some stuff, and it's publicly available today. So even if you didn't pre-order the game, if you just want to go try out the Battlefield 3 multiplayer beta, you can go to their website. I think it's just battlefield.com and download it for the PC. I think it's even publicly available on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. So you go to that website, it'll give you a code that you can type into Xbox Live or PSN, and you'll be able to download the beta and try it on that all the way completely free up through October 10th, at which point they reset everything and send us back to the dark ages. And they make you wait 2 more weeks for the final release of the game on October 25th. So that kind of sets the stage. Now, what we did over Tuesday and Wednesday and a little bit of today is I spent a lot of time kind of benchmarking and trying to figure out ways to test performance. We couldn't test all the video cards we wanted to yet, and testing multiplayer games, multiplayer exclusive games, is very difficult because you're never in the same situation twice. You can't exactly mirror what it is that you need to do to get multiple runs through a game. So, I basically spent each benchmarking session that I did, each run was 120 seconds. And I spent 120 seconds running around trying desperately not to get shot to die, which would take you out of that main screen into like a reloading section, which affects performance in a different way. So it took a long time to do the benchmarking, a lot longer than you would have with any kind of single-player game where you have a lot more control over that type of stuff. But in the end, the game is as tough on hardware as we kind of hoped. Maybe a little bit less tough. If I'm trying to see, the original article that we posted up on Tuesday looks at, we tested 4 cards from AMD, or 4 cards from NVIDIA. If you click on that link there, the top link in the first paragraph, that'll take you to the full story that looks at, we compared the Mars 2, which is the dual GTX 580, the GTX 580, GTX 570, and the 560 Ti, and then from AMD, the 6970, 6950, 6870. So kind of like a somewhat broad range of cards, but unfortunately, the first round was all modern stuff. The page that we're looking at now on the video actually is when we went back today, we were able to test the GTX 460, the Radeon 5850, and even going way back to like 2007, 2008, the 9800 GT, GeForce 9800 GT. And,
right.
you know, to get more than 60 frames per second at 1920 by 1200 or maybe 1080p resolution at the ultra image quality settings. So this is, you know, everything turned up all the way. You have to have the Mars 2 card to do that. Or you have to have SLI or Crossfire configurations. This is some of the top level cards, right? So if I go look at the outdoor section of the only publicly available map is obviously the most strenuous. If I go look there, you know, the GTX 580 was only able to average something around 42 frames per second.
Wow.
On that at 19 by 12.
It sounds like they not only want this game to look beautiful, but they want it to have a nice, healthy life. Like by this time this year, I'm sure everything will be maxing out the frame rates on this, but you know, or every, you know, $150 card and higher. But it looks like they wanted to give this some legs in terms of, you know, the quality of the imagery without, you know, getting all crisis and just destroying everything that tried to run it at full settings.
It's interesting because you're right. And even more so than I think you might even realize, because what was interesting to me is if you go back from ultra to high to medium to low in terms of like the default kind of presets of quality settings, ultra looks the best. High looks very close to ultra, and you really have to kind of look for things to see the differences there. Medium, you start to see some differences, and low, you see a lot of differences. But what we were kind of surprised with here, Ken and I, when we were doing our testing, we had the 9800 GT. We were running at 1680 by 1050 on low image quality settings, and we got around 30 frames per second. And low, if you have a screenshot of low and you have a screenshot of ultra, it looks really different. But if you just look at low, it doesn't look horrible, which is kind of interesting. What I kind of decided, or what I kind of think that they might have decided to do, EA and DICE, the developer, is they decided to make the lowest quality you could actually set still pretty good quality, because they didn't want to sacrifice the look and style of the game for being able to have less expensive, less extensive recommended hardware requirements, right? So they were able to do a little bit of tweaking on that end, right? So, you know, the recommended card for this game is a GeForce GTX 560 Ti or higher, which is a $220 video card. That's that's the recommended setting. So that's pretty severe up there. And in my testing, a 560 Ti can't really push ultra settings.
And it's also worth pointing out at this point that this is a pretty strong break from gaming tradition, where they give you a minimum specs for a machine that will definitely launch the game and will kind of play it at like 8 frames a minute. You won't be competitive, you won't enjoy it, but technically the game does run on that hardware. So this is, I think it's really interesting that they're actually, you know, putting in minimum hardware that's playable and enjoyable, which is, I think, a step in the right direction compared to some of the stuff I've seen in the last few years.
This time, those specs actually mean something. Right? And it's interesting because one of the things that I did in these articles and my Twitter posts and Google Plus posts is I was asking for feedback, saying, what are you guys playing on and what is the experience like? Because you know, it would take us weeks and weeks to really kind of evaluate every hardware, CPU, memory, and GPU combination out there. But with you know, kind of massive audience that we have, we can kind of compile a lot of that information and get it ready for everybody. I think it's actually playing better than a lot of us. I've heard some complaints on the forums and various locations that the game doesn't look as good as they expected. And I think it's based on all the trailers and pre-release videos that they kind of sent out, right? And you kind of expect that to some degree.
I don't know. I mean,
they're using some kind of filtering on it, and
it's looking pretty delete expletive spectacular from the screenshots I've seen so far. I mean, I also think there's always a backlash. Like, people are always like, oh, you know, it didn't look as good as it should. They changed it. The trailers were amazing. And it's like, well, the trailers are always insanely polished and they take a lot of time with them. I mean, I'm curious, are there any indications at this point that it's particularly CPU versus GPU? You know, if your $300 upgrade, obviously it's going to vary with what processor you're running, but does it look to be pretty balanced in terms of what it responds to upgrade wise, or is it just too early to tell?
I haven't spent a lot of time on the CPU side of things, and that's something we want to focus on. It doesn't. My initial gut response is that it's not very CPU dependent. And I don't want to. It's not. It will be. It will be a factor, but I think if you've got a quad core processor, you're going to be fine. We have a quad core, kind of a high end Halem system. I think it's a Core i7 965, so it's quad core hyper threaded. It's a high end processor. We do that, so we try to have as little bottleneck on our GPUs as possible. But I did play around with that a little bit this afternoon, and I noticed our CPU utilization was kind of hovering around the 35 to 40% level while playing the game. So I think if you have a modern quad core processor, a Phenom 2X4, any kind of Sandy Bridge or even Linfield type of processor, I don't think the CPU is going to be a real big bottleneck on this. And all indications from talking with guys at NVIDIA and AMD.
Right.
It's really definitely a GPU centric problem. So also I did want to mention I did do basic image quality testing comparing AMD and NVIDIA. When new games come out, it's always interesting to see if there are quality differences between the two. Apparently the developers did a very good job here with Battlefield 3 in terms of deciding, making sure the driver guys were in line with everybody else. The AMD and NVIDIA image quality looks about as identical as you can possibly make it. And then we were just showing some of the animations I made as well to kind of compare what low, medium, high, and ultra quality settings look like. Like I said, you'll see a giant difference going from low to medium and from low to high, but when you get in between high and ultra, it's kind of a little bit more of a wash than I think many of us expected. So, but the reason, and we did update today with the GTX 460 and those other testing. The GTX 460 was one of the best-selling graphics cards ever, and it still sells pretty well according to NVIDIA today. So I wanted to make sure we threw that in there as well, so there and see those results. I mean, I think if you play on medium or high settings, you could do 1080p resolution with the GTX 460, and it's I think it'll be pretty playable for you. But we've got some of the newer, more expensive graphics cards in there, so you'll know if you want to know.
You'll know how much you're missing by using that 460.
Yes. One of our goals to maybe do this weekend is kind of build a Battlefield 3 system guide where we say, if your target is a 1080p screen at medium settings, here's the cheapest system that we would recommend you buy for that. If you want to do ultra settings at 1080p, here's this, right? If you want to do a 30-inch screen, here's what you're going to have. And I think that will kind of lay it out in a more, kind of easy at a glance type of format, which is something that I think everybody will like. So hopefully, I need to spend some more time testing at those different quality resolutions. We did most of our testing in the ultra quality settings, but we'll be talking about this until the game is released on October 25th, I'm pretty sure.
I was saying probably for long afterwards. Something we've been waiting for.
There's other games coming out too. You've got Batman and Rage and all. I mean, it's gonna be a crazy month.
It's a good time to be a gamer.
It is.
AMD's Bulldozer is here. We've been waiting for this for a while. I thought it was actually kind of fascinating that the initial run of Bulldozers, right, it's the new processor from AMD, are all going to Cray. They're 16-core, 8 modules. Each module is containing 2 integer units and the shared 256-bit FPU SSE SIMD unit. But it's kind of crazy. AMD's got a bunch of chips that are directly going to supercomputers. Cray XE6s, probably simulating, weather and earthquakes and natural disasters and stuff. How long before they start showing up in the hands of less illustrious consumers?
Less illustrious consumers. Those of us with slightly less money in hands there. It's not going to be very long. I have not received my actual testing sample yet, so haven't had any hands-on time with it since I was down in Austin. I would assume you'll probably have Bulldozer before you'll have Battlefield 3 final release. So I mean, it's going to be relatively soon. It's going to be definitely before the end of the year, before we get into the heavy winter season and that kind of stuff. But we're still up in the air in performance, right? It's great to see AMD. Basically it says release, but they basically ship the first parts. They're giving it to a very exclusive partner, a very important partner for them in that regards. But it's I think it's going to do well. I still really believe that people are going to jump on the bandwagon of Bulldozer, even if it doesn't blow away Sandy Branch processors. I think that it will be very popular as an 8-core part, the first kind of consumer grade, widely available 8-core part. Yeah.
So taking a look at something that's a little more enterprise than we usually cover on This Week in Computer Hardware, but the OCZ drive has taken a quantum leap. Maybe quantum leap is an exaggeration. Order of magnitude might still be an exaggeration, but it's basically a PCI Express base. The OCZ drive R4, 1.6 terabytes. It's PCI. Basically, it's a bunch of memory on a PCI Express card, something we've seen variations of for years. But this is the 2.0 8X SSD. Alan did the full review for PC Perspective. And it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to find that, VCA 2.0. Where did it go? I love that moment where like the one paragraph you want to quote is missing. And that's my fault. It's also interesting. If you go to the last page, the conclusion page, there's some great graphics of the board disassembled. This is a lot of there is a lot going on with this one. Pros, industry-leading sequential
controllers on.
It's so crazy. Industry-leading sequential performance, incredible, IOPS performance, outstanding IOPS scaling at greater Q depths, incredible performance versus cost versus Fusion IO. This is the 300 gigabyte version of this drive is $2,100 for the half-height version. The 1.2 terabyte drive half-height version is $8,400 if you got the space in your server racks. And for the full 3.2 terabyte version, you are spending a whopping $22,400 for this beast. So you're looking at like $7 a gigabyte. I think Alan calculated it out as. But these are also, this is basically, here it is. The superscale processor not only takes full advantage of PCI Express 2.0 X8, it nearly saturates it completely. When it comes to ganging multiple SATA 6 gig per second SSD controllers together, this is hands down the best implementation out there. I see these showing up in the enterprise just as quickly as OCZ can make them. So, Editor's Choice winner. This is if you find if bandwidth is a bottleneck for your server situation, and you have a check to cut, this is what you should be cutting your check on. These
Almost
are pretty crazy.
Gigabytes per second of bandwidth.
It is like obscene. Yeah.
He was talking to us last night. It basically broke a lot of our benchmarks because we didn't have enough CPU horsepower to push that many IOs per second.
We should point and when you talk about like nearly 3 megabytes per second, like random reads 3 megabytes per second, like excuse me, 3,000 megabytes. So 3 random reads at 3 gigabytes per second. Random reads, not sequential reads, random reads, random writes, in some cases at over like 512K blocks at just over 3,000 megabytes per second, 3 gigs of megabytes per second. Sequential reads are a flat line at just under 3 gigs per second. It
was somebody in the chat room last night mentioned that it was, I think he said it was like 2,085 1.44 megabyte floppy disks per second.
Right.
Like if you reach back in time and look at how much data that actually is. It's also a lot of money, but the enterprise market, it's not as much as a lot of its competition. That's something that OCZ has to do if they want to actually breach into that enterprise market, which is huge profit margins. Right. They're known as a consumer brand. They're struggling to get into that market a little bit, and to do that, they can offer these kind of price advantages until people start to use it and rely and trust on their hardware. So, if you've got $12,000 laying around.
Well, it's crazy when you look at like the benchmarks when this is, you know, the OCZ Drive R4 is delivering literally like double the performance of the OCZ Revo Drive, you know, 3X2, which is delivering nearly twice the performance of the next fastest drive that they were able to benchmark. I mean, this is obscenely fast stuff. So, yeah, get your hardware nerd on. Check that article out up at pcper.com. I thought this was interesting. Your $600 gaming laptops powered by AMD. Are these actually going to be like legitimate? Will they be upgradable? Are they going to have a lifespan of a year before you upgrade to the next one?
Upgradability is not probably going to be really a factor here unless you're talking about just memory.
Right.
Because Tech Report did an article. It was the Asus A53T, powered by the Llano A6 3400M processor. It had 6 gigs of memory in it. And obviously, those Llano processors come with the discrete, the integrated, the Radeon HD 6520G graphics. So this is a combination. This is okay. So it is a discrete graphics and an integrated graphics, which they work together through a hybrid crossfire type solution. Has a 15-inch screen, 1366 by 768 LCD, right? So it's a modest resolution. It's not super high, but based on the amount of graphics horsepower you have, it's probably the right setting for it. It has pretty good features like HDMI and VGA outs. The Tech Report came away really impressed with the battery life during movie playback. It died after, I don't know, close to 4 hours or something like that. Still long enough to get through any type of length film you have. And again, this is a $600 machine that can also play games on its native resolution very well. I don't know about Battlefield 3, but most other titles out there. Again, it's a $600 machine, and this was kind of the promise of AMD Llano. The whole Fusion processor design that they've had is, look, we're going to be able to get much more graphics horsepower into the same thermal envelope, the same power envelope as Intel Sandy Bridge parts for lower cost. And at a $600 machine, that is apparently the case. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. It was the Asus A53T. So there's a lot of these kind of creeping out into the market now.
So the worst case scenario is that they do that, and then Intel drops prices and everything to try to remain more competitive at all price levels, which would suck for AMD, but it would overall be good for consumers. We've got a question about this coming a little later in the show. Should we wait to talk about the Razer Black Widow till then? Oh no, I'm sorry.
No?
Excuse me. We have a question about the new Razer notebook, which currently is a 3D render.
Yeah, but anything in a 3D render can be made to look very good.
I almost feel like we talked about this last week because it's the Alps mechanical switch keyboard from the Razer folks, isn't it?
Yes, I think we did. I think you're right. Yeah, the Black Widow Ultimate Mechanical Keyboard review. Scott did that. I think we did talk about that before, or maybe we didn't. Maybe we don't need to touch on it again. I think maybe what we talked about last week was the Corsair releases of keyboard and mouse, but they also did Cherry mechanical switches and all that kind of stuff too. So
got it. It's kind of funny to watch, mouse manufacturer suddenly embracing the keyboard, but I'm pretty sure we talked this to death last week. What is the story? I was like laughing when I looked at the name of this. It's like the most awkwardly named product in forever. The Alphenphone Pita, which is actually a massive VGA cooler. The Alphenphone Peter VGA cooler has a long list of modern graphics cards with which it is compatible. The only missing suspects are the GTX 560 and 70. If you have any other modern GPU, then chances are this VGA cooler will work for you. It's like 10 inches long, 10 by 4 by 4.7, can accommodate 4 120 millimeter fans or 3 140 millimeter fans. The cooler is also rather heavy, says Jeremy Hellstrom over at PCPer.com, around 650 grams without fans, which you should keep in mind, which is a polite way of saying it will yank your card out of the slot if you turn it upside down if there's no lock
zip ties
on that PCI. Yeah, zip ties or a little hot glue on the corner or whatever. It's pretty funny. Beat the Arctic Cooling Plus 2 by 10 degrees centigrade and did it more quietly as well. And they also leave you some warnings. Some configurations do not cool the VRMs very well, and the massive size of the cooler makes SLI Crossfire difficult, if not impossible, to set up. So
it's interesting. The fans actually come with a black anodized bracket, right? So the fans are actually attached to the heatsink. They attach this bracket that gets installed in your case as if it were just an add-in card in itself. So it's definitely going to take up, I don't know, that looks like 3 slots, maybe. I'm just kind of guessing there.
Yeah, they're saying it's like 4 inches wide installed. We should also give a quick shout out to the original article. The original review is up at madshrimps.be. Yeah, this thing is cartoon like. I dropped a link in the show notes if you want to pull that up. But you're looking at these giant heat pipes running through. Basically, they took. It almost looks like a set of U-shaped heat pipes that they laid over flat, and you can start to see those pictures down there where they start showing the heat pipes in there. There's like 8 sets of heat pipes, 2 sets of coolers basically running to either end of the heat pipes. 1, 2, 3, 6. So there's 6 heat pipes coming out of either end of the cooler. It's just a massive, massive amount of metal. And then there's like, a whole bunch of passive heat sinks you can install, an anodized bracket that allows the multiple fan installations. This is definitely going to take an afternoon to kind of set up, configure, and get rolling on your GPU. Basically.
What impresses me the most about this, the cooling performance is great. The biggest hurdle in aftermarket GPU coolers has been compatibility, right?
Right.
You had to have one for your very specific PCB designs, very specific board designs, and anything they can do. So they claim a lot of cards with just a couple of exceptions. That is the most impressive part to me, is that you can have one that you could possibly then take to the next card or move up from your right. 460 to your 580 if you wanted to upgrade that or something like that. That to me is what's kind of really innovative about it. I mean, it looks impressive. Other than, I also think it's kind of funny that everybody just keeps calling it the Peter VGA cooler.
Yeah, EK Alpenphone is the company that's making it. Yeah, 12. There it is. 12 heat pipes, 91 fins, and I'm actually afraid 55 euros. So according to Mad Shrimps, so you're looking at like a $110, $120 GPU. That's tempting if you're going for a super quiet PC. Once you've dropped your $180, $160, 500-watt silent power supply unit and your $200 your $120 GPU sink and another $40-50 for a CPU cooler. We should probably take a moment to thank our sponsors. We got a big pile of viewer questions we want to get to, and if you've never sent in an email question to twich@twit.tv, Mr. Shrout and I would like to invite you to do so right now. Don't stop listening. Just open up your notebook, grab your keyboard for your computer, type out a question, twitch@twit.tv, or you can reach us on the Twitters @Patrick Norton or @Ryan Shrout. And we want to take a moment to thank the fine folks over at Netflix for helping us bring this podcast to you.
That's right. It is our good friends at Netflix. Netflix, that very same company that streams thousands of TV episodes and movies directly to you instantly, which means you save time, money, and hassle. You don't have to worry about leaving your movies anywhere. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's all streaming. It's instant. Not an issue. And the good news is there's lots of easy ways to instantly access those streaming movies and TV shows. So you can go to Netflix.com on your Mac or your PC, your iPad with the new iPad app. You can watch on your iPhone, and some Android phones too. The list keeps growing in that regard. If you have a gaming console like an Xbox 360, a PS3, or a Wii, you can watch Netflix right on your TV that way. And even if you're not a gamer, you can watch Netflix on your TV with the Apple TV or Roku box. They're pretty inexpensive devices and have a lot of other uses as well besides just Netflix. So that might be something worth looking into. With Netflix, you can watch movies and TV shows using any of those devices, and you can begin watching a movie or show on one device and then finish on a different one. So you can start it at home and finish it on your phone on the way to work. Hopefully you're not driving. Maybe you're a passenger or on a train or something like that. But, the convenience that offers is actually really, really impressive. Whichever way you choose to access Netflix, you can watch as many movies or TV shows as you want anytime you want. So you can rewatch things. There's no limit to that. You can watch 10 hours a day if you're sick and home from work. You have all that flexibility. It's not going to raise your cost or your rate or anything like that. And if for whatever reason you're not happy with the service, you can cancel it anytime. But I don't think you're going to have any issues there once you give this a shot. Now, to get your free 30-day trial, all you have to do is go to netflix.com/twit. Be sure to use that URL when you sign up, netflix.com/twit. We thank Netflix for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware, the entire Twit network, and we hope you enjoy watching instantly with Netflix.
Woohoo! Question we meant to finish off with last week, we didn't quite get to. Peter is looking for a GPU upgrade. He says, I'm currently running a Radeon 4850 HD. I was thinking of upgrading to an XFX HD 687 ZNFC Radeon HD 6870. I want something that will enhance my current experience and also last me for at least a year with decent settings. Do you have any better suggestions, or is this enough? Which we could go straight back to, do you want to play Battlefield 3? How long do you want to go? Do you think there's a possibility that like Battlefield 3 will go for a year and then do some major upgrade to the graphics? Or do you think it's pretty safe that the current GPU consumption level on Battlefield 3 is going to stay steady for a while?
I'd say it's pretty safe that it's going to stay steady. So the 6870 is actually a card that we tested in our performance preview. So if Peter wants to go there and check that out and see if he's comfortable with those levels. Again, we only tested it Ultra. I want to say the 6870 was somewhere around 35 frames per second at those quality settings on the outdoor levels. So, that's going to be the toughest test he's going to have in the world of PC gaming for now. It doesn't really give us any idea what his budget is. The 6870 is definitely going to be a big improvement over this 4850, but there's room to go up from there, right? You could go to the 6950 if you wanted to get a little bit more boost out of it, or if you're comfortable with the 6870, that's fine, and you always have that option to buy a second one, in 6 to 8 months down the road for similar or maybe even lower price. And crossfire those cards. So I think that 6870, if it's not super overclocked, should be somewhere around $180, I guess, which would be pretty good. So yeah, there you can see they brought up the 6870 performance results. So we're talking anywhere between 30 and 40 frames per second, depending on your various levels. Yes, the green line there. So just one game of many, though, right? So if he's really looking forward to Diablo 3 and StarCraft 2 or those types of games, then the 6870 will be more than capable of handling those titles. But Battlefield 3, definitely the most strenuous game in a long time for PC users.
Cool.
How about an email from Scott on a temporary CPU upgrade, which is interesting.
It'll make
Says,
sense
hey
in a second.
Hey guys, thanks for the excellent show. Currently thinking it's upgrade time. I have a Q8400 Core 2 quad-based system. Intel costs too much for me, so I'm going AMD. I eventually wanted an 8-core bulldozer, but if rumors are true, it'll cost too much at release. So I need a stopgap product. Which should I go with? The Athlon 2X4 or Phenom 2X4? Assuming clock speed between the two is similar or the same, would it be better to save a few bucks with the Athlon or go ahead and get the Phenom, even if it might replace it in a year-ish? Thanks again for the show, Scott. That's an interesting thing. So
my first question
is rumors. You're basing it all on rumors.
Yeah. Is Bulldozer even going to use the same socket as a Phenom 2?
Yes.
Okay, so that much. Do you think it'll use the same chipset as the Phenom 2?
Yeah, so if he were to buy an AMD 990 FX motherboard today, and there are several that are like from MSI and Asus that are marketed as Bulldozer ready, then he would be able to install an Athlon 2X4 or Phenom 2X4 today, and then upgrade to a Bulldozer processor later.
Okay.
So I guess, I don't know, without getting into specifics, we're relatively close to the release of the bulldozer part. And I think it would be worthwhile for him or anybody in the same situation to maybe do a little bit more research, see if you could find out when the actual bulldozer release date is, and see if you can't wait then, right? Because even if you're gonna spend $110 on an Athlon 2X4 processor, you're gonna be disappointed if bulldozer comes out and maybe the processor you want's only $250, and you could have spent that much, but you thought it was going to be $500, so you wait. Right? And so I would say, you're within a reasonable time span of waiting for that, and it might be worth it just to not go the stopgap route and see if you, if it does come out and it's too expensive for you, then you can go down that route, and the Athlon 2X4 part's going to be just fine. It's going to be really low cost. So, if it takes you a year to get the extra memory and the processor that you need, then so be it then. But I'd say don't jump into things too early.
Take your time, because the motherboards will be more plentiful and less expensive in a year than they will be now. It's our favorite recommendation. Wait longer, get more, spend less. Alex in San Jose has discovered that USB charging sucks. Recently, I bought an HP touchpad, says Alex. It comes with a USB wall charger and a micro USB cable. I have a few other devices that use micro USB and tried to plug the touchpad into the current USB charger / micro USB cable I use for my mobile phone. The touchpad reports that the current is not high enough to charge the touchpad. Clearly, only the charger that came with the touchpad is strong enough to charge the touchpad, but will it hurt my mobile phone if I plug it into that charger also? Will it charge any faster, or will it be the same rate as using the charger that came with the phone? Alex from San Jose, California. Yeah. So the EU decided that having all sorts of different charging devices for cell phones was a wicked ripping scam and had to be stopped. There are insert any of a number of actually quite valid and reasonable reasons why they wanted to use micro USB as a standardized power charging port for cell phones. But they laid down the law, and pretty much all manufacturers follows, and a lot of devices that might not have been micro USB are micro USB. The end result is that you have micro USB plugs that are asking for a whole lot of power to charge their batteries. Case in point, your HP touchpad. Another case in point, not micro USB, but also USB, would be the iPad. The iPad's looking for 2.1 amps over a USB port to charge it. Obviously, you're not going to get that off of a traditional PC or notebook-based USB port because they only offer 500 milliamps. That is a lot less than the 2.1 amp from a standard iPad charger. So the end result is that you need to, when you're shopping for USB chargers for a lot of different cell phones to a lesser degree, and tablets to a much greater degree, is to take a close look at the amperage or milliamperage specs for the charger. There are a lot of 1 amp / 1000 milliamp chargers out there. There are a considerably smaller number of 2000 milliamp or 2 amp chargers out there. They all run 5 volts, which is great because it means you can plug your cell phone into that 2 amp charger without frying it. Depending on how the charging is set up for the phone itself, because almost all, but not almost all cell phones that are made today, they control, all the charge controlling is done by electronics inside the phone itself. So you can't really overcharge it, you can't really undercharge it, unless there's variables on it going in. But basically the charging is controlled by the phone itself, and if it wants to, it should be able to take advantage of the higher amperage to charge the phone faster. Case in point, my iPhone charges a heck of a lot faster off my 2 amp iPad USB charging adapter than it does off of a cell phone port, or excuse me, a USB port on a notebook or a desktop. So you should not kill your phone. It may actually charge faster. Some might argue that the faster charging will end up giving you reduced battery life over time in terms of the longevity of the battery. I don't necessarily think I buy into that, but we are also trying to make, batteries last longer and longer and longer because they're more and more expensive and more and more difficult to replace. So I think in a lot of cases we're noticing battery death a lot more than we used to in the past. But yeah, keep an eye open for, car chargers and other devices that deliver 1 or 2 amps. I'm starting to try to not buy any USB adapters that are less than 2 amps just so I can make sure I can plug the iPads into them. But it's kind of frustrating, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Now, there's an interesting... It started happening about a year ago. Some motherboard vendors started coming out with specific ports that will output more amperage as well. And even when the systems are turned off, which is kind of nice.
Right.
So you can charge computers off.
We need more
fact,
of those.
Ken, I don't know. Ken has one of these USB adapters that has 4 different ports on it. Does this have a manufacturer, or is it just random Chinese company? Oh, Arctic Cooling apparently sold one at one point that had 4 different USB ports on it, each at a different amperage.
Nice.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
So you could, if you wanted to be careful about that, you could have one plug in the wall that would then do your iPad at 2 amps and in your phone at 500 milliamps if that's what you wanted to do. So interesting.
There's some interesting stuff out there. Griffin Technology actually makes what they call their Power Jolt Micro, which is pretty slick. It's a little tiny, probably really easy to use in between the car seats if you're not careful. Let me put a link to that in the show notes. Car charger, that's a 2 amp car charger, weighs just about nothing. I want to say it costs... still have those moments where you close the window you're trying to read from. It's always an embarrassing moment. Costs, $16.46 off of Amazon, but it is a tiny 2 amp USB charger. I'm getting to the point where what I really want to find is an external USB hub that'll let me charge multiple 1 or 2 amp devices off of it, and those are actually proving, at least for me, very, very difficult to find. So,
yeah, Arctic has some. You can look those up too. It looks like they range from $10 to $20 as well. So interesting. How about an email from Kenneth from Ohio, who's asking about external Blu-ray drives? Says, "Dear Patrick and Ryan, hello guys. I love Twitch and I watch the show every week and I enjoy it. Thank you very much. Looking for an affordable external Blu-ray drive for my Dell Studio 1555 laptop computer. Any buying advice here would be great. Thanks and love the show."
Well,
so you wrote in our show notes right here, Plex Store.
Yeah, Plex Store is one of the only really high-profile manufacturers that's doing an external Blu-ray drive. They do a 4X that's been around for a while with a sort of clamshell lid. They recently started doing a 12X. In terms of affordable, the most affordable ones I've seen are where you take a 5 1/4 inch external optical drive controller and build your own. Those are also by far the least portable because you end up usually with a traditional. You end up with this big case around a 5 1/4 inch drive. Invariably, it uses a full size grounded plug, not a USB cable to power it. But it looks like Buffalo makes them. Lite-On makes. Oh, actually, I take that back. Lite-On's got one for $150. No, I think. Ooh, even better. Hey, you know what? Lite-On actually has one now for $100 on Newegg. So that's actually relatively recent. 600 millisecond BD-ROM access time, 2 megabytes cache, 8x burning, the DVD plus R, plus RW, minus R. That's pretty good. And Samsung actually now has one. So I was all excited about Plex Store because I happen to like Plex Store products. I've been using the burners forever. But Samsung has a nice USB 2.0 external Blu-ray drive. Lite-On has a very inexpensive, relatively inexpensive $100 one that's super slim, and then they have some larger ones. If you want like a Blu-ray burner, you're going to go for a more full-size drive, and it's going to run a little closer to $150. But Plex Store is actually that's selling for the original one. The 4X one is selling for $80 now, so that's a pretty good deal. And their 12X burner is selling for $180. So lots and lots of options up on Newegg, Amazon.com, and other places. I'd probably stick to Lite-On or Plex Store just out of habit, but I'm pretty sure the Samsung drive should take care of you, Kenneth.
Cool. Now we want to make sure we get to this email that you kind of teased at the beginning of the show. Dan is interested in our take on the Razer's upcoming Blade laptop. He starts out, I love my MacBook Pro, but I'm a game designer. It's pretty cool, doing both design work, Adobe CS5, and dev work, mainly in Visual Studio, on games. Ideally, I'd also like solid gaming performance out of my laptop, since playing a lot of games is part of the process. It seems to me that Razer's Blade is the optimal balance of portability and power that I'm looking for, ignoring the high price for the moment. After being spoiled by the MacBook Pro unibody enclosure, I'd hate to switch to a bulky and cheaply crafted machine like an Alienware just for gaming. But I hope I'm not losing too much gaming capability with the Blade. Ignoring the price, how will the Blade fare as a gaming machine? I'm essentially sold on it, but I'd love to get your take on its performance capabilities. The specs are as follows. For a reminder to everybody, including myself, 2.8 gigahertz Core i7 mobility processor, 8 gigs of memory, NVIDIA GT 555M, 2 gigs, a frame buffer on that discrete card, 1080p screen on a 17-inch display, 320 gigs, 7200 RPM drive, USB 3.0 support, HDMI output support. I'm trying to think, nothing else really here super important, I guess. There's a video playing on our version here. And he says, thanks for the input, Daniel.
Yeah, that video is from Razer's website. It is a delightful 3D rendering. I was actually surprised that Engadget apparently got hands-on with it with the corporate corporate mothership of Razer. Boy, I'm having trouble speaking tonight. And it's really, Razer's traditionally they do gaming mice. They've done keyboards like we were talking about earlier. This is pretty slick, right? Because along with that relatively slim design, backlit keyboard, but there's a big area on the right, and you can see it right there, the lower right-hand corner, where there's a second display down in the kind of touchpad area there. And I think it's really interesting in terms of design and layout. Razer, of course, has the marketing machine. The marketing machine going completely over the top. Actually, is it a touchpad? Look, yeah, it's definitely 2 mouse keys underneath that. But it's an interesting idea to have like this huge, gaming style layout for the keyboard, but then not have the number keypad on the right, but have that big touchpad kind of extra screen in there. It's funny, like on one hand I want to say, oh my goodness, it's their first notebook, beware, be careful, be cautious, there's always going to be trauma when somebody's coming up with a completely new product area. But the reality is there's a pretty good chance that this is going to be made by one of the same 3 or 4 companies that built most of the notebooks for most of the companies in the world that already sell notebooks. Yeah, you know what I mean? It'll be curious. I don't know if Razer has their own factories or they're going to be contracting this out, but it's pretty interesting.
Is there any indication on availability time frame?
Not even a little bit. I also would hesitate, you're talking about a pretty swank-looking notebook with pretty good specs and a pretty slim design, and they're going to have to put this 480 by 800 LCD trackpad on the right. I'm not seeing anything that even remotely can suggest what the pricing is going to be like or what the ship date is going to be. So he said $2,800. The price on it isn't as obnoxious as maybe I thought at first. So I've got this. This machine sitting here. This is a 17-inch Alienware machine. It pretty much fills my whole screen, right? Right. It's big. It's not as sexy looking as the one we saw in that video there, but it has all the functionality of a 17-inch gaming rig, right? So this one has a Radeon HD 6990 in it, Core i7. I think it's got 6 or 8 gigs of memory in it as well. Look, there's a reason why 17-inch gaming notebooks are this size, and it's not because they want to be. It's really hard to get this much a small container. Right. It's not that I don't believe that Razer could do it. It's just that I don't believe Razer could do it because it's their first attempt. Right. Alienware and other companies have had years and years and years to try this,
and they haven't made anything like that. Am I saying that they can't do it? No, I need to see it. I need to see it mass produced. I need to see what its build quality is before I would shell out $3,000 to a company that makes keyboards.
Right. Especially with the what they're calling the switchblade technology, which is that relatively high resolution for a tiny little screen underneath the trackpad in the corner. I really want to see that live and in action and running. Really cool concept. I think if I was a super gamer, I might rather actually have my number pads over there. But it'll be interesting. I look forward to Razer having. I hope Razer has success for this, but I'm with Ryan. I'm not holding my breath on seeing this one hit the street anytime soon. We got an email back talking about we're talking about Flight Sim 10 last week, and Peter wrote in just to say, when I upgraded from an 8800 GT to a 5870, Ryan, would you call that a significant upgrade in GPU performance?
More than a little. Yes, I would say 8800 GT to 5870 is 6 or 7 times, maybe 5 to 7 times as much graphics processing horsepower.
We'll call that healthy. So Peter says, when I upgraded from an 8800 GT to a 5870, I got no performance improvement at all. Flight Simulator 10 only uses the CPU, so generic upgrade advice does not apply for it. So if anybody else wants to comment about Flight Sim 10 upgrades, I suspect it's mostly going to be around wanting bigger monitors with higher resolution, more monitors, and super cool flight controls. If you've never, go ahead.
I was going to say, what Peter should do with his 5870 is hook up 4 or 6 displays to it. Then he'll see some of the benefit of all that extra horsepower. The problem is Flight Simulator X is just, it's kind of an outdated game. The graphics aren't being improved on it necessarily in any significant way. So if he's playing on like a 1680 by 1050 monitor, and he moved from an 8800 GT to a 5870, it doesn't really surprise me that he wouldn't see any performance improvement in that regard. Now, if he went up to a 30-inch display, or if he started buying, 3 or 4 of those 1680 by 1050 displays, and he could connect all of them to a single graphics card, that's a perfect use case for Eyefinity technology, right? Flight simulators. It just depends on how much money you want to spend and how much room you have on your desk. I don't know if the CPU side of things, he didn't really give us any kind of more feedback on there. So upgrading your processor is more difficult than upgrading your graphics card. So
there you have it. Sorry, I just got distracted trying to find one last picture of Flight Simulator 10 that we could post into the show notes there. So I apologize. I got a little excited with one of the pictures I saw of a plane. Nice. I'm afraid that if I start playing Flight Sim games again, I'm no longer going to have a functioning relationship with my child. So, although he's actually discovered gaming on the iPad, so he may no longer have a functioning relationship with me because he's discovered not only educational games but puzzle games, which he is completely and utterly obsessed with. Which probably is a pretty good place to cut it. We desperately want your questions. twitch@twit.tv. Whether you're talking about home theater PC hardware, desktops, portables, notebooks, we'd love to talk about it. We're pretty excited about what's going on with the world of hardware. That's why we're here every week at This Week in Computer Hardware. PCPer.com is the man's website. What's coming up this week on PCPer.com? I venture to say a lot of Battlefield 3 is going to be taking over your life, Ryan. Am I wrong?
There's going to be a lot of Battlefield 3. We're actually doing kind of like a live Battlefield 3 party later tonight, where we're going to get a bunch of people to try to hop around from different servers if the servers will allow us to do that. Yeah, we've got a lot of that coming up. Hopefully we'll take a look at CPU performance on Battlefield 3 and try to come up with some kind of cohesive performance guide for users interested in making sure their system is ready for Battlefield 3 when it comes out on October 25th.
Nice.
And Techzilla. Big plans this week?
Yeah, actually, we got some pretty good stuff coming up for the Twitch audience. We're finally doing our quiet PC build on Techzilla, so I've got a mixture of some stuff, a case that may look familiar to the Twitch audience, and then doing some basic practical PC quieting that you can do on your case at home and in your components, mostly concentrating on fans and stuff. I will admit I decided not to go with the super stylish, silent, utterly, totally silent fan-free power supply because I can't hear the 20 dB fan in my current power supply because it almost never turns on under the loads running on this system. But yeah, we talked about Amazon's Kindle Fire, all of the new announcements. It's kind of interesting. Like Amazon Prime, they did a huge deal with Fox this week, so it's been fun looking at the video options there. Looking at HDTVs, trying to find a lot of our viewers want to buy HDTVs without any additional. They don't want they don't want Netflix, they don't want Vudu, they don't want support for videos from their local servers. We talked a little bit about that, and FreeNAS versus Windows Home Server is another thing that's up on the latest edition of Techzilla. So
Very cool.
mostly though, I'm looking to get that last few dB of noise. I think I've done it. It also helped that on the particular build, it was a server build, so I didn't have to deal with GPU noise. So I'm not going to have to buy the fantastic. I'm not going to say it, dude. I almost said something. I would call it the Alphenphone Peter, rather than calling it the short but slightly obnoxious thing that we were calling it earlier. Yeah, that thing is tempting. It is too much money, but it would be really tempting for my gaming machine to quiet it down.
Yep.
So that's it. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll talk to you next week on Twitch. I'd like to thank the studio audience for not running in horror by that. That's so awesome, that shot.
You can grab that mic and talk into it if you want to talk to him. Yeah, go.
Now, were they there all day today?
No, they showed up they only showed up for the show.
Oh,
It's because they're going to rob you. Because that's the way people who listen to Twitch roll. Heavily armed and late at night.
We have a wireless mic for you. We upgraded. Have a wireless mic.
This work?
Yeah, you're on.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Where you guys in from?
We actually flew into Seattle yesterday and rocked the Pacific Coast Highway.
You did not rock the Pacific Coast Highway from Seattle. You would still be on the Pacific Coast Highway. Did you take Guy 5 down?
We took 5 to, what was it?
We took 5 to Crescent City, and then from Crescent City took it all the way down to Petaluma.
Nice. That's did you enjoy it? Or after like the first 100 miles, were you like, dear God, not another turn with the majestic vista and the ocean crashing beneath me?
The whole thing was glorious. We split it up a little bit, so everybody got some, oh, sweet Jesus, that's so pretty, oh, God, I'm going to die time.
I'm going to kill us all.
Like, oh, look at that pretty rock. Oh, kind of time. So it was good times. We really enjoyed the drive down here.
Nice. You guys in town for business or pleasure? Or?
We're heading to the Adobe Max conference in Los Angeles.
Oh wow!
And so we just kind of we stopped by. We tried to stop last year, but it was all full. So we planned a little earlier this year. We were able to get in on this one. So we were really excited to be able to sit and watch this.
Very cool.
Do you guys use the whole suite of CS5, or do you guys specialize in any particular corner of the Adobe universe?
I think between us we use just about everything. I mean, we're all Cold Fusion programmers.
Sounds like good people to know.
But we all have to use it in different things. He and I do a lot of multimedia between the two of us. And I don't know a whole lot of what these other two guys do. I actually don't know who they are.
I imagine they sign your checks. That's the way we usually talk to our bosses around here.
Yeah, we're mostly web developers, so Dreamweaver, living in Dreamweaver all day.
Oh man,
Gotcha.
Dreamweaver is an amazing application, but I do not miss working with it.
It's better than Cold Fusion Builder 1 based on.
This logging has begun.
Or home.
Oh, you just went robo on us. Your USB driver must have kaput. Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I love that feature.
Yeah. Here, try it again. Yeah, you're all robo. You just unplug and replug in your USB headset. And there. Try it again.
Testing.
Yeah, now you're back.
Yeah, more T-Pain remix.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the first time that's happened to me.
You guys going to take the PCH down the rest of the way, or?
No, I imagine tomorrow we're going to play, a Silicon Valley company headquarters bingo, and then we'll probably run out of time and then make our way down our way down 5.
A panicked overnight drive after leaving late.
Dude, we so didn't have to see all of the Android models in front of the Googleplex. We could have just gone home. Like, no, we need pictures with all of them and make them do rude poses. Like, that's probably what it will turn into.
Oh man, are you gonna go to the Apple Garage or anything?
I don't think we quite have time for that because they don't have anything special at the Apple Garage. It's just like, hi, look at the house.
It's like the house where George Washington was born, but better because I can't say that because I'll get a giant pile of angry
Don't do
emails.
that. No.
I hear the HP garage is cool because that they kind of restored back to like the 1930s and have some of the original calculator models there and that kind of thing.
I know one of the family members or one of the families bought it and made sure it was maintained and that it wasn't bulldozed and turned into an In-N-Out burger or anything. Not that it would be in the middle of a residential block, but yeah, I think there's actually normal human beings that own the Apple Garage house that I think get really irritated if you knock on the door.
Oh, well, now I just got to do it. I know we're going to do the Computer History Museum. We'll do the Intel Museum, and then I was talking to like a bunch of people from the HR from like NVIDIA and Intel and all these places to get the actual tour. And then when it was like, yeah, Friday's totally cool. And then I was like, well, what time can we come? And then I haven't heard back from anybody.
So, the only one of those I can tell you for sure, like NVIDIA office is Cubes. I don't know, they got a really great lunchroom though.
Not as good as Google.
Can you see us? We love lunch. Lunch is great.
They've
First
got
lunch,
sushi
second lunch.
all the time. So.
No, the place you really want to scam lunch is Google. If you guys ever been to the Computer History Museum?
No, that's why I really want to go.
It's obscene. It's amazing. It's really very into history.
You've gone robo.
Yeah, you've gone robo again.
You've gone T-Pain on us again.
It's like
Later-ish again.
when you unplug though, we can
Gentlemen.
hear your fan.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how loud the fan is because it's like I
guess
said
the mic
before.
is right there.
I never ever hear this thing turn the fan on except when Skype's running, and that's all running at like Mach 7. The Computer History Museum is fantastic. You'll also just start looking at some of the stuff people used to use, and it's so, 20, 30, 40 years later, it's so delete expletive Rube Goldberg. You think about like Charles Babbage trying to make this mechanical gear system work. PDP-1s are in there. I'm trying to remember. It's just some crazy. Yeah, they're actually restoring a PDP-1, which is just an incredible piece of hardware. I don't know.
They restored a Univac once. I went there a couple years ago because the curator Leonard Shustek went to Polytechnic University, which is our alma mater. So he gave us a tour, so I got to like reach out and touch ENIAC and touch machines and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's cool. And they have a working Univac there. It's like the only one because they closed down the one in the bottom of Stanford. Like it's crazy. So yeah, we can't wait, and because it's in the former Silicon Graphics building, and so it's gonna be really exciting.
Very cool.
Is there anything else you could recommend to do, considering HR won't return our calls? Any other?
Unfortunately, you've already. Well, actually, I take that back. I'm sure someone at the TWIT headquarters will let you Google quickly to try to figure out where the secret entrance to Lucas is, and you can go pee on the Lucas side. It's something I try to do at least once every 2 or 3 years because I'm still kind of angry about Han shooting second.
I know what's up with that.
But I'm childish and pathetic that way. There's actually pretty cool, if you want to get a picture with Yoda as you drive down. If you guys come into the city tonight, if you drive down, if you come over the Golden Gate Bridge, you head into the Presidio, the Lucas complex down there. The trick with that is to get in, get your picture, and get out before the really cranky security guard. I think they may have actually gotten used to the idea that people are going to take pictures with Yoda, because we went there to take pictures once, and the security guard, you know what I mean? You know, I actually was dressed like a normal human being and well shaved and actually looked reasonably presentable, like somebody's dentist from Nebraska. But it was with a small friend of mine who was from way out of town. She was like, I want to get a picture with Yoda. And we went to take the picture. And this guy's like, what are you doing? And we're like, we're taking a picture with Yoda. And it was one of those moments where you're like, security fail. Not because he wasn't paying attention, but because now, you know, I was sitting there like, you know what? I've got a truck. I've got a tow strap. Yoda's mine. And it's going home with my friend. And then I'm like, no, because you never want to find out what sort of horde security is going to come out of the woodworks, the robotics that they haven't sold, you know, to the public yet. That they keep exclusively for people who try to steal the Yoda at the facility down. I forget what they call that one. The one that like San Francisco taxpayer dollars basically paid for, because you know Lucasfilm doesn't make enough. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. So it's basically in the Presidio.
I've got to disconnect here. We've got to rearrange all our cameras and stuff.
Cool. See you later.
We're there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
You guys. It was nice talking to you.
You rock.
Thanks for watching our
Hey, man.
TVs.
There you go. Watching.
But yeah, the Yoda statue at the Presidio Lucasfilm headquarters is pretty awesome.